Environment, Natural Resources Policy and Legacy Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022 at approximately 1 p.m. Today we have 5 bills up that are going to be laid over. They're short bills before we get to our main bill here today. And with that, we have welcome to the committee, Senator Rarick. Have you been before us before?
Not this year anyway.
Yeah, well, welcome and proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Senate File 3544 is a bill that will allow counties to better serve their tax forfeited lands with the ability to secure longer lease terms and higher lease fees that will align better with infrastructure. An example would be a company that would like to put a cell tower on that land. So the bill would increase the lease terms from a maximum of 10 years to 25 years and would increase the amount from 12,000 to 25,000. And I have 2 testifiers with me today who would like to speak in support of the legislation.
Thank you. Who would like to go first?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll go first. For the record, my name is Gregory J. Berneau, Carleton County Land Commissioner out of Carleton, Minnesota, just south of Duluth.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'll keep my discussion short. So yes, this legislation is very important to the all tax forfeited land bases throughout the state of Minnesota that occur on all 87 counties. These rates and time changes have not been changed since my term as a land commissioner, which first started in 2005. So we're working on 17 years of no changes. And since that time, we've seen land prices go up, values go up, and also the interest from businesses wishing to develop or to put a tower up, be it armored tower, be it cell tower, or for recreational development. They just can't make it on a 10-year lease. They are constantly asking us for a longer term. So that's why the Minnesota Association of Land Commissioners, made up of 15 northeastern counties from Pine County to Becker County to Lake of the Woods and then over to Cook and back down, identified this as one of our 3 topic items for the legislative session. And again, we're looking at the change from 10 years to go to a 25-year lease and the rate from $12,000 per year to $50,000 per year.
Thank you. Mr. Eide?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Nathan Eide, Land Commissioner with Lake County. I'll use our county as an example of cell towers wishing to develop towers on tax forfeited land. In Lake County and much of the northern counties, public land is partially the only option to develop land just because of the high percentage of public land and not very much private land to do such a thing. So public land is often the only option. And in Lake County, where cell coverage is very limited, which is not only an annoyance factor for constituents, but also it's a safety factor for emergency dispatch that uses cell coverage. So we're looking to develop more cell towers in Lake County, and the cell towers have a really hard time with the 10-year lease. So this 25-year lease will help allow that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marinucci?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Marinucci, St. Louis County Land Commissioner. And I will only add to what was already presented, the lease, the fees going up to $50,000. In St. Louis County, we sell gravel. And because gravel value is increasing, that $10,000 limit is sometimes problematic, and raising that up allows us to better reflect the market for those materials and make sure that we are able to work with local construction companies, public works, to ensure that they've got the materials they need to do the road projects in our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Thank you, Senator Rarick. Senator Sen John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so can as I often say, can you dumb it down for me? So this is land that's owned by the county or the state? Is it the county?
Madam Chair, Senator, these lands are tax forfeited lands. So these forfeited for non-payment of property tax. They're state titled lands held in trust for the taxing districts. The taxing districts include the county, the township or village which is found, and also the school district. Through statute, the counties have, because we collect the property tax and distribute, we have the obligatory trust management of those lands. So we decide what happens upon consultation with the township, the school districts, and also the DNR on occasions.
So
Senator Sen Jim.
thank you, Madam Chair. So they're not owned by the state. And so the county then, or would be any local unit of government that might own that land would simply be able to lease up to 25 years.
Mr.
and
Manu.
get remuneration up to $50,000. It's that simple, right?
Madam Chair, Senator, it's pretty much that simple. The county board through statute has the trust responsibility of making the decision on those lands for the township, school district, and village or town. So if a tower was to be set, be it a DOT armor tower or a Department of Health armor tower or cell tower, they would approach the county board. The county board would do all the legwork to establish that tower on that site and then collect the fees and disperse.
And
Senator
you,
Sen Jim.
Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you. Members, are there any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Senator Rarick. Senate File 3544 will be laid over. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next up, we have Senate File 1860. Is Senator Bach in the room? Senator Bach, welcome to the committee and proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Which one of the bills would you like to take first?
How about Senate File 1860?
Okay, I'm pinch hitting for Senator Tomassoni here, so unfortunately my land commissioner is here. So maybe I'll just have her present them. She worked with Senator Tomassoni on these, so let's start with Senate File 1860.
That would be awesome. Yes, 1860.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So Senate File 1860.
Would you just identify yourself again for the?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Julie Marinucci, the Land Commissioner for St. Louis County, here to speak on behalf of Senate File 1860. This would allow for the counties to lease for conservation easements. And these easements are beneficial, as you continue to hear the ecosystem services, that includes the ability to put easements on tax forfeited lands for wetland banking, for carbon markets, these different emerging markets. It would provide an additional revenue stream to leverage these tax forfeited lands for the benefit of the trust. Right now, with the way that the statute that governs the tax forfeited lands is laid out, we are not able to put these conservation easements in place, and this would allow us to do that. And it mirrors the language that was put in place for the school trust lands by last session, and will again allow us to explore these carbon markets and explore the ability to do stream restoration and those types of activities.
Thank you. Mr. Bernew?
Yes, Madam Chair. In addition to what Commissioner Marinucci has spoken of, this will also affect all 87 counties in the state of Minnesota, not just the 15 northern counties that we represent here at the table today. So this will help the people down in Rock County and Laverne with wetland mitigation. When a county highway department has to fill a wetland for a realignment of a county road, it'll help the people up in Kitson County. So it's not just a northeastern Minnesota project. It'll affect all 87 counties.
And Mr. Eide?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nathan Ide, Land Commissioner, Lake County. Again, I'll use an example in Lake County. We have our wetland bank credits are often few and far between, and for highway road projects, it's nice to be able to use our own. It not only it saves money, but it lets those projects get done more efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we have Susan Damon for the DNR and virtually would like to make or is she here? Oh, she's online.
Yes.
Like to make comment? There she
Yes.
is. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I would just like to point out that we do have a small concern with the conservation easement provision. We would like to work with the counties to address potential concern that we have about encumbrance of state-owned minerals when a conservation easement is placed on these tax forfeited lands. Many of those lands have tax forfeited minerals or school trust minerals, and we just want to ensure that we are meeting our fiduciary responsibilities. We will be reaching out to the county to try to develop some compromise language that will address the DNR's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there questions? I appreciate the DNR going to reach out to the counties to work out that issue that they have. So thank you with that. And with that, Senate File 1860 will be laid over. And members, just for your information, Senator Tomassoni has joined us on the Zoom. So he is listening in today. So Senator Bach, Senate File 3005.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is another bill for St. Louis County. And the land commissioner can tell us what they're looking to expand a wetland bank.
Ms. Marinucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Julie Marinucci, St. Louis County Land Commissioner. The Senate File 3005 has got two portions to it. The first part is a land exchange authorization that would allow us to exchange lands that have commercial peat. There's two different land exchanges that are involved in this. One of them is a smaller Friends of the Saxon Bog land exchange. And then the other one is one that we are working on in conjunction with the DNR and the Conservation Fund that is down the line. And then it's another land exchange that would potentially create a large wetland bank again in the Saxon Bog. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is the ability to create a land acquisition trust fund for St. Louis County. I'm new to the land commissioner role in St. Louis County, and I found situations where we've got undivided interest, where there's joint ownership in these properties, and they're in areas that have high mineral potential, and we don't have any good way of purchasing land that would allow us to consolidate ownership, whether it be within the parcel or in areas where there's small private property holdings in a larger land mass. And it would be to our benefit to be able to purchase that and bring that land back into the tax forfeited trust. And then any revenues down the line that are generated are consolidated with the larger land holding of the tax forfeited trust in St. Louis County. Presently, if we use funds from the tax forfeited trust, those lands come in as county fee lands, and then the revenues get separated. And then per what Ms. Damon said earlier, that mineral estate, there's the potential of complicating the ability to develop minerals in the future. So there's just a lot of benefit from consolidation, potential access for timber management, and then also mineral potential, that there's a benefit to be able to create this trust and purchase lands and bring them into the tax forfeited trust.
Members, other questions? Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no problem with the trust wanting to purchase lands. Does this in any way, shape, or form give a governmental trust condemnation authority for private holdings?
Ms. Mariucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, no, that is not the intent, is to have any sort of condemnation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, other questions, members? Thank you. Senate File 3005 will be laid over. With that, Senate File 3006, Senator Bach.
Oh, Madam Chair, this is an issue that this committee, when it relates to the lands bill, sees quite often. There's a trespass issue on a couple parcels where the original surveying lines were wrong and people built a building, and now it turns out they're not totally on their own property. So this addresses a private sale for a couple parcels where there's a trespass. Commissioner?
Commissioner Marinucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Exactly like Senator Bach said, there's a couple in our land sale review. As we identify these trespass issues, we try to bring them forward in a way to resolve them without causing hardship to the neighbors, because it was unknown at the time that they put those structures in place. You will note one of them is part of a parcel, and in that situation, again, in working in good faith with the DNR, this is in an area that has mineral potential. So we are going to split the parcel and only resolve the trespass and not sell the entire parcel, again, to retain lands that are in areas of high mineral potential.
Thank you. Members, are there questions? With that, Senate File 003-006 will be laid over. Senate File 3122, Senator Bach.
Madam Chair, this is an issue that I worked on a long, long time ago when I was officed across the street. Representative Rookavina and I worked with the county. The county had probably over 400 lakeshore lease lots that they decided they wanted to dispose of to get the land back on the tax rolls. So they needed legislative authority to be able to do that because those lots bordered water. So maybe that, so that process has been ongoing. Most of them ended up sold to the existing property owners, but some retained a life estate provision on them and decided to stay on them rather than buy the property. So the commissioner can speak better to the issue than I can.
Ms. Marinucci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking to this issue, the biggest issue we've got is that it has a sunset provision built into it. And because as Senator Bach mentioned, people have the option to keep it for the entirety of their life. They can hold it until they pass. We have the potential of continuing to have to chase this sunset provision as people continue to enjoy these properties through their lifetime. So the request is that we would eliminate the sunset provision just to not have to continue to come back and look for an extension and ensure that we still have current legislation to be doing what was initially intended with the 2012 legislation.
Thank you. Members, are there questions? Seeing none, Senate File 3122 will be laid over. And thank you very much. And thank you, Senator Bach.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Senator Tomassoni as well.
And Madam Chair, Senator Tomassoni's been texting me several times today about ALS and trying to get his bill in shape for finance tomorrow. So he not only is watching, he's playing a texting game with me to make sure we get that language in that bill exactly how he supports it. So,
And I hope we get there. And I know we will. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Senate File 3065, Senator Mathews. Senator Mathews, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I believe you have the A1 amendment. It's an author's amendment.
Correct, Madam Chair.
Senator Weber, would you move the A1 amendment?
So moved.
Senator Weber moves the A1 amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Senator Mathews, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to be back with you and at the Environment Committee again. And we're here discussing an issue that we have discussed before here with an additional element to the bill I'm bringing forward this year. This is a bill to again repeal the PCA rulemaking authority over the California cars emission standards. In addition to that, and the amendment that we adopted eliminates some sections of the bill that identified different product types by name, and what we have left in the bill in section 2 still covers all of that and still meets the intent of the bill, but we have eliminated naming of certain types of other equipment that are in the bill. So the bill will do two things. First, it will eliminate the PCA rulemaking for the California cars standard. Again, as we've discussed many times before, this has been an unconstitutional separation of powers and intent to go around the legislature. The legislature needs to rein it back in, which we're attempting to do. And the commission's been very overbroadly interpreting statute to claim that they have the authority for regulating what cars dealers can have on their lots all around the state of Minnesota. And so we've covered many of those topics before. In addition to that bill, this also includes a section, the consumer choice of fuel section in section 2 of the bill is a new area this year that essentially will prohibit the restriction or banning of certain products in Minnesota based on their fuel type. And the reason why we are putting this in a bill form again this year is the Pollution Control Agency has just recently testified that they do have the authority to go even further than the California CARS rulemaking standards in the future if they choose to. They could go to other vehicles, they could go to commercial, they could go to household lawn vehicles, and they could start impacting a lot more Minnesotans and impact their ability to run their households, their properties, their businesses. And so this is a protection upfront to say that we cannot just by simple agency rulemaking go around a standard that the legislature should enact should we ever choose to in the future and prohibit the agency from doing that. Again, Madam Chair, the whole point of this bill is that we should not be run and ruled by mandates and rulemaking. We should not be ruled by mandates and rulemaking. We should be ruled by the rule of law, by our elected legislative bodies, and being the voices of the people of our districts that have sent here to enact statutes. And why this is even important then.
One moment, Senator Mathews. Members, will everyone please make sure they have F1 pressed on their computer? We're getting feedback here. Thank you. Senator Mathews, excuse us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. An additional reason before I go to my testifiers why this is important is the state of California has already shifted their California standards again and have moved beyond the rulemaking that the Pollution Control Agency had already set their prior rulemaking to, which has just proven my point from the first times I've brought this bill along, that if we're going to change standards here in Minnesota, they should be Minnesota-based standards passed through our legislature, through our representative bodies, and signed into law and be the standard that we follow here in Minnesota. The California CARS rulemaking standard requires us to cede our authority to California bureaucrats. And when they change the standard, we then have to decide again whether we're going to change along with it. Rather than go along with California bureaucrats, I'd rather go along with Minnesota representatives and senators here that we have elected here in this state, and not continually be put in a position of revising these rules every time California changes or increases their standard. Let's keep it local. Let's keep it to our members here, and keep it constitutional in bounds of legislative decisions. So with that, Madam Chair, I appreciate you listening to my introduction. I know there's multiple testifiers that are eager to speak to this bill as well, and I'm willing to turn it over to them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. First up, we have Dr. Ellenwald. She is on the Zoom virtually. Dr. Wald. There you are. Thank you. Welcome to the committee, and please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here virtually today. I am not representing any organization, but I am a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Global Energy Center, and I also submitted written and also testified when the rule adoption was being considered. And I am speaking obviously in favor of the Minnesota Consumer Choice for Fuel Act. I have a few points to outline today. So the current regulation, which adopts California standards for the sales of zero emission vehicles, I'm going to focus mostly on the zero emission vehicles, is not reasonable for Minnesota for both economic and environmental reasons. The regulation has adopted these standards without consideration for the differences between consumers' needs in Minnesota and those in California. What may be right for California is not right for Minnesota. The mandate also does not take into account the difference in power generation between Minnesota and California. So I'll speak briefly to the environmental aspect and then to the economic aspect. When you're looking at Minnesota, the standard for zero emission vehicles is not going to help necessarily help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because many of these electric vehicles will be charged on Minnesota's grid. And Minnesota's grid draws at least 50% of its power from burning coal. So unless Minnesota drastically changes its power generation mix, Minnesotans who are charging their EVs on this grid will essentially be running their cars on coal, which poses a major issue for the idea that this will help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Also, the Consumer Choice for Fuel Act would help correct this issue. And now I'm going to speak to some of the economic issues. So the current mandate requires car manufacturers to send the same percentage of electric vehicles to Minnesota as they send to car dealerships in California. But consumer car purchases in Minnesota look very different from those in California. And the current selections of EVs available are not compatible with the needs of Minnesota's consumers. EVs currently make up about 1.5% of total vehicle purchases in Minnesota, about 2,000 per year. And only 5% of Minnesota residents say they're very likely to even consider purchasing an electric vehicle. And some of that has to do with the type of vehicles. Minnesota residents buy a much higher percentage of larger vehicles like trucks and SUVs, 82% more than California residents do. There's about a 55%. Now, despite all of the amazing Super Bowl commercials, I'm sure that we all saw highlighting all of these fancy new electric pickup trucks, most of these cars are not even available. I think there's only one that's currently available. There are also range and climate issues. Minnesota's climate is not well suited to electric vehicles. EVs lose range in the cold because the battery's power is sapped to heat the vehicle, and also the batteries are just not as efficient in the cold. When it comes to charging infrastructure, Minnesota's lacks appropriate infrastructure to support electric vehicle adoption. There are really still no DC fast charging stations in the southwestern part of the state. And then you have the cost. Electric vehicles are too expensive for most families to afford. On average, they cost 35% more than a internal combustion vehicle. And further, the 2028 cost parity that's cited by the agency is basically based on a model that will not necessarily come to pass. Just because they say that the costs are going to come down or the costs are going to equalize doesn't mean that that will necessarily happen. Particularly, that's evident with all of the incredible changes that we've seen over the past several months with supply chain and computer chips. So these predictions are based on forecasts that are not likely to necessarily come true. And so the current mandate is, though, not just going to affect EV purchasers, but will also make the cost of all vehicles more expensive for Minnesotans. When the current inventory issues that we're all facing due to supply chain problems and chip shortages resolve themselves, if this mandate is left in place, it would force dealerships to keep lots of cars on their lots that people don't want. So car dealerships could end up with over 18,000 EVs dropped into their lots annually. And by forcing dealerships to devote a predetermined percentage of their inventory to EVs, this will raise the cost of all vehicle purchases for Minnesotans. There'll be fewer internal combustion engines that are preferred available. As the supply decreases, then the price will rise. We'll see higher prices for new cars. Will also contribute to the continuing costs going up on used cars, because people will choose to buy used cars, raising the demand on a limited supply, which is part of what we're seeing now because of chip shortages. This would just continue that process. Dealerships that sell new cars would be forced to hold on to their lots for lengthy periods where electric vehicles aren't selling. And so then to meet the profits they're seeking, they'd likely need to raise prices on cars that do sell. Also artificially pushing the price of vehicles higher for Minnesota residents, especially at this time of economic and social hardship, would strain the budgets of Minnesota households. So this bill would prohibit mandated inventory for vehicle retailers so that the dealerships won't be forced to carry vehicles that Minnesotans don't want, don't work as well in Minnesota, and aren't affordable for most. But if EVs gain in popularity, there's nothing stopping dealerships from carrying more of these vehicles. One of the last point is that car prices are rising precipitously now, and the leaving this mandate in place would only add to those costs and keep them high, even when supply chain issues have resolved, and could add approximately over $1,000 more per vehicle for Minnesota consumers. And at a time when we have rising inflation and rising costs all over the place, this would just contribute more to financial hardship. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wald. Members, I think we're going to hold our questions until the testifiers are done. And Dr. Wald, if you would maybe stay around in case there are questions for you later. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Carolyn Zern from AgriWoman. She is also remote. Ms. Zern, are you on? You may be muted. While we're waiting, we'll have Eric Zern, Vice President of the Becker Mahnomen Soybean and Corn Growers.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep this short because a lot of the technical stuff that I was going to talk about has already been talked about.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Sorry, Eric Zern from Becker
Mahnomen
County Corn and Soybean Growers. My biggest trouble with the Minnesota Clean Cars is that it was not run through the legislative branch. We elect our officials to go down and make laws for us. And we in northern Minnesota feel like we get very little input the way it is because we have such a small population up here. And if our legislatures have no say at all, we're really being left out of the loop. And that is a real concern for us, especially when, the MPCA officials are appointed by the governor. If the governor just passes that on to them, we're the citizens of the United States and Minnesota have no say. As a farmer, I'm concerned about the Clean Car Act because I make my living off soybeans and corn, which means ethanol and biodiesel. And both of those were run through the legislative process and passed legally with laws, not just bypassed and run through the MPCA. And I think that's the way we should be doing things here in Minnesota. And if we go to electric cars, those two industries will be impacted greatly. And what will we do with those industries? We have 3 biodiesel plants in the state of Minnesota. We have 14 ethanol plants, and they produce 1.3 billion gallons of ethanol. These industries and jobs would be impacted greatly, as would agriculture. So that is my point on that. And also, I feel that the electric car is just basically a one technology that does not apply for one to agriculture because electric trucks and electric pickup trucks, yeah, they sound great, but it's just not going to work. And us as farmers, we use a lot of used vehicles, and if the market becomes electric, we can be locked out, and we don't have that great of electrical grid up here in northern Minnesota the way it is. At 5 o'clock, the heat in my shop gets rippled every night. It's shut off. Now, if we have everybody coming home, plugging their cars in at the same time, we're just gonna have more and more troubles with our grid. And we do have blackouts and brownouts up here, kind of, you know, a couple times a year. And so I'm very concerned about our grid. So thank you. And I guess that's it.
Thank you. Is Ms. Zern, are you able to turn on your microphone?
I will text her.
Yeah, no, she just is good. All right. With that, we will go to Isaac Orr. Welcome to the committee, and state your name for the record and proceed when you're ready.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Isaac Orr, and I'm a policy fellow specializing in energy and environmental policy at Center of the American Experiment. I'm just going to hop into the Zoom meeting so I can share some slides with the committee this afternoon. All right, sorry for the delay, but we are cooking with gas. Well, it's still legal. All right, so yeah, this afternoon, I'd like to talk about why I believe that the Consumer's Choice of Fuel Act is a good idea. Perfect, there we go. All right, so yeah, so about me, I'm a policy fellow specializing in energy and environmental policy at Center of the American Experiment. Some of my writings have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, The Hill, USA Today, and many more. And I also grew up on a dairy farm in rural Wisconsin, which is ultimately why I care about issues like this, because I believe that standing up for rural communities is one of the things that I can do to kind of, you know, honor my family's legacy, right? So about Center of the American Experiment, we're Minnesota's leading public policy organization specializing in a whole host of issues apart from energy and environmental policy. I was the author of American Experiment's 46 pages of comments opposing the California car mandates from the beginning. Many of those arguments are summarized in our winter 2020 issue of Thinking Minnesota, which is our magazine. So if you would like that article, I'd be happy to email that to you and our comments. So I just want to talk about the merits of this legislation, and really we should have freedom to choose our own fuels because this is the United States of America and we're a free country. When I was in high school, one of my favorite movies was Easy Rider. I know that I'm probably a little young for that to be one of my favorite movies, but nothing seems quite as American as watching him hop on that motorcycle and take off across the Southwest. So I think that people have the right to choose what kind of cars, boats, snowblowers, and farm machinery they use. And it's better for consumers to make their own choices rather for those choices to be made by unelected bureaucrats. And I'd also like to point out that there are serious supply chain, national security, and reliability issues that we need to resolve with electric vehicles before we mandate them onto the market. So why is this important? Obviously, Senator Mathews talked about why this is important. The MPCA last week said that they have the authority to adopt not only the LEV and ZEV standards that will require 7% of Minnesota's new auto sales to be electric, but they could actually adopt the ban on small gas engines, which even bans backup generators for electricity generation in California. So California is in a position where they're having trouble keeping the lights on during very warm periods when the sun is going down. They actually have something called a flex alert, where they ask people to voluntarily reduce the amount of electricity they're consuming during hot periods. So we really want to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse here with electric vehicle mandates. And that could lead to Minnesota adopting bans on even the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035. So this is good because it protects consumers and it's practical, right? California isn't the only state that's done this. New York is looking to adopt these rules as well. So, you know, critics of this legislation argue that MPCA isn't forcing anyone to buy an electric vehicle, but if they have the power to enact the 100 or the ban on new gas sales by 2035, that's essentially what they're doing. They might not be doing it at this time, but we're leaving a really open-ended question for the bureaucracy, basically, and I believe that should be handled by the legislature. And I would argue that this legislation enhances our energy security. I think the Russian invasion of Ukraine really kind of amplifies the need for us to have secure supplies of reliable energy. And I think that people who argue that this will help us get off of oil, I don't really think that that's foreign oil. I don't think that's a great argument because we're the largest producer of oil and natural gas in the world. So rather than trying to get off oil, we should be producing our own oil. And in fact, this will bolster this legislation, I think, will bolster our energy security because a lot of the electric vehicle battery minerals are sourced in foreign countries. So we really need to think about this stuff before we go about mandating them willy-nilly. And here's just a graph showing U.S. or world energy production in terms of oil. The United States is the largest producer. Russia is second, Saudi Arabia is third, and everyone else is kind of in the rearview mirror. So when we're talking about projecting America's strength abroad, it hasn't just been the fact that we've had the biggest military since World War II. It's the fact that we are able to feed the world with our farmers. I mean, I grew up on a dairy farm, so that's a huge thing, but also provide energy, because if we were not sending liquefied natural gas and oil over to Europe right now, Vladimir Putin would have a much stronger hand to play. So yeah, just kind of talking about how Michael Schellenberger was Time's hero of the environment in 2008. And he's saying the West green energy delusions empowered Putin. So basically Europe's energy policy consisted of shutting down their nuclear power plants, shutting down their coal power plants, and becoming reliant upon Russian imports. This is especially pertinent in Germany, where they, basically we're going to send 5,000 helmets to Ukraine because they didn't feel that they can make a stronger statement because they're so reliant on foreign gas supplies. So a forced transition to EVs with an MPCA rulemaking would be the equivalent of unilateral energy disarmament, because when you look at the EVs, they use a lot more minerals than a traditional car. You have a lot of copper, nickel, lithium, cobalt, and manganese. And where does that stuff come from? Well, generally not the United States. So whereas we are the largest producer of oil and natural gas, almost all of China is the largest refiner and processor of many of these minerals like copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, and rare earths. So we need to be thinking, are we putting ourselves in a similar geopolitical situation that Europe is currently experiencing? And if we are, then that's probably not a good idea. So we don't want to be as helpless and dependent on China for our energy resources as Russia, or as Europe has been with Russia. 80% of the solar panels made globally come from China, and most of the rare earth minerals, as we talked about for the wind turbines, come from there too. So we really need to be thinking about this stuff before we allow the MPCA to really kind of dictate the way that we're going to get our energy in the future. There's also the problem with how will we charge these cars? I talked about the Flex Alert earlier, and the California ISO, which is the grid operator there, said basically don't charge your cars between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. because we don't have enough electricity on the grid. So we need to make sure that we have enough reliable electricity to make sure that electric cars are viable in the future. I think a great way to do that would be to build new nuclear power plants in the state of Minnesota. I don't really have to talk about this. So yeah, I just think this is great legislation because it's going to reaffirm the freedom for consumers to make their own decisions, which is ultimately what this country is all about. And it also has important implications for energy security and the MPCA's admission that they believe they have the power to adopt all of California's regulations in this space, I think bring a new sense of urgency for this legislation. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you. Next up, we have Craig McDonald, MPCA Assistant Commissioner for Air Policy. Welcome to the committee.
Madam Chair, for the record, my name is Craig McDonald, and I serve as Assistant Commissioner for Air and Climate Policy at the PCA, and I'm joined by my colleague Frank Kolash in the event you have questions. So thank you for the opportunity to testify in Senate File 3065. As you know, the MPCA's mission is to protect and improve the environment and human health. This mission requires the agency to take actions that ensure our air, water, and land are clean for all Minnesotans and remain clean for future Minnesotans. When the legislature created the MPCA, they granted the agency the authority to regulate air pollution from stationary and mobile sources. The legislature entrusted the agency to utilize its expertise to determine the major sources of air pollution and to develop strategies to reduce emissions from those sources. We do not take this obligation lightly. The MPCA opposes Senate File 3065. This legislation would repeal the Clean Cars Minnesota rule that was found needed and reasonable by an administrative law judge and was adopted in accordance with the Minnesota Administrative Procedure Act. The Clean Cars Minnesota rule does not restrict consumer choice, and it does not place regulations on automobile dealers. This rule does not regulate farm equipment, ATVs, snowmobiles, or landscaping equipment. Minnesotans will still be able to buy the type of vehicles that fits their needs, whether that is a gasoline-powered pickup truck, an SUV, a passenger car, or an electric vehicle. The only entity regulated by Clean Cars Minnesota are automobile manufacturers. Senate File 3065 would also permanently prevent the MPCA from addressing air pollution from mobile sources, including greenhouse gas emissions. The transportation sector is the #1 emitter of greenhouse gases, and addressing emissions from passenger cars and light-duty trucks is imperative to fighting climate change. Madam Chair, the MPCA has consistently said that Minnesota will do what's in Minnesota's best interest when it comes to developing vehicle emission standards, and that remains true today. However, Senate File 3065 damages the agency's ability to protect Minnesotans from harmful air pollution. This concludes my testimony, and we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have one more testifier and then we'll go to questions. John Reynolds from the NFIB.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to testify. I'm John Reynolds with the National Federation of Independent Business in Minnesota. I'm the state director. We are the state's largest small business organization with over 10,000 members in every corner of the state. Over 75% of our members have fewer than 10 employees. We actually surveyed our members on the question of energy source bans this winter, and 95% of our members oppose energy source bans by any unit of government. One size fits all mandates simply don't work on Main Street, and small businesses need the flexibility to do the best for themselves and their employees. So NFIB supports Senate File 3065, and we thank Senator Mathews for offering it.
Thank you. Senator Mathews will go for questions unless you have a statement you'd like to make. Thank you. Members, are there questions? Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have some questions for the MPCA staff who is here, if I might.
Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I just have some follow-up here. So this sort of seems like we're going back in time. It feels like we're back in last session and we're doing a redo on the clean car arguments. But I'm wondering if you could describe to the committee what the leading sources of greenhouse gas emissions are in the state of Minnesota and how these rules work to address that issue.
Mr. McDonald.
And Madam Chair, I might actually turn this over to my colleague, Frank Kolash.
Welcome to the committee, Mr. Kolash. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Frank Kolash, last name spelled K-O-H-L-A-S-C-H. I'm Climate Director for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Senator McEwen, to your question, the top sources of greenhouse gas emissions in Minnesota are the transportation sector. And within that sector, light duty vehicles, pickup trucks, passenger vehicles, SUVs, crossover utility vehicles account for 58% of the emissions in that sector. And that was the basis for undertaking the Clean Cars Minnesota rule. Then the next sectors that are high greenhouse gas emitting sectors are the electric generation sector. And that is on track for meeting the Next Generation Energy Act reduction goals because of the actions that have been taken due to the renewable energy standard, the electric efficiency standard, and announcements by Minnesota Power and Xcel Energy to reduce their emissions by 80% for Xcel Energy by 2030, and then by 2035 for Minnesota Power. And then the next sector is the agricultural land use and forestry sector, where we see crop agriculture emissions, animal agricultural emissions, but we also see storage of carbon in that sector in our forests in Minnesota. Then the next three sectors, which are smaller than that, separately, significantly smaller than that, are the industrial sector, residential and commercial building sector, and then the waste sector.
Thank you very
Senator
much.
Senator McEwen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. And can you tell us a little bit about how these rules work to address, you said transportation is the #1 cause of greenhouse gas emissions in Minnesota. How do the clean car rules that have been, that the legislature has charged the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to draft and to pass under Minnesota Statute 116.07, and have also encouraged through the passage of the bipartisan Next Generation Energy Act back in 2007. Can you tell us a little bit about how these rules would work to address that #1 cause of greenhouse gas emissions in Minnesota?
Mr. Kolash?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator McEwen, the Clean Cars Minnesota rules are specifically targeted and directed at reducing the greenhouse gas emissions of our passenger vehicles, cars, trucks, SUVs, and crossover utility vehicles. It does this in 2 phases. One, there is a grams per mile reduction for greenhouse gases as part of the low emission vehicle standard to make sure that Minnesota has the cleanest and most efficient vehicles available available to us. And then there's also the zero emission vehicle standard, which sets a target for automobile manufacturers to sell a certain percentage of vehicles in Minnesota that are zero emission, plug-in hybrid electric or battery electric. And our determination is that those do result in reduced greenhouse gas emissions based on whether they are charged by Minnesota's general grid, our average grid. And we were looking at the data that we have that from our Department of Commerce in 2019, 30% of our energy comes from coal, 24% comes from renewable, 21% from natural gas, and 24% from nuclear. Now, we also observe that there's an opportunity in Minnesota for purchasers of an electric vehicle to sign up for a green electric service from their utility provider, where they would be able to recharge their vehicle on 100% renewable energy and create significant emission reductions to that. And so at the time when we proposed the rules and began the adoption of the rules, there was a change happening at the federal level. They were reducing, making less stringent the greenhouse gas emission standards of the low emission vehicles. They were also reducing the fuel economy standards, which would result in more emissions. So we thought it was important for Minnesota to adopt these rules to target these particular types of vehicle in the largest greenhouse gas emission sector in Minnesota to bring that emission trajectory back in line with the Next Generation Energy Act.
Senator McEwen, a follow-up?
Yes, please, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you for that. That it's really important, I think, for us to have this information when we're talking about a bill that would take us back from where we went last year. If the agency is unable to regulate greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector, if it wasn't able to do that, what other tools would the agency have to regulate this type of pollution?
Mr. Kolash?
Madam Chair, Senator McEwen, then we would have to rely on seeking emission reductions from the other sectors, whether that's the electric generation sector, the agricultural sector, the forestry sector, or the industrial sector, or our commercial and residential building sectors, because we would not have a regulatory authority to address these vehicles or any of the gasoline or diesel powered engines in Minnesota. And that would not only be for greenhouse gases, but that would also be for other pollutants, toxic pollutants that people would breathe in. If we do find ourselves in a situation where we are in non-attainment or not meeting the federal standards for ozone or for particulate matter. And that is something that the agency is keeping very close track on, because the EPA is reconsidering those standards constantly, and the science is showing that people are harmed more by lower levels of those kinds of pollutants. So with this bill, then we would not be able to regulate those, and we would have to seek reductions from other emitters of those same pollutants.
Senator McEwen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it sounds like that would be a pretty big gap in the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's ability to protect Minnesotans from air pollution and to reducing the greenhouse gas emissions in Minnesota. And that's not really a question or comment, but I do have another question. Why did the agency choose to focus on cars versus the other types of equipment that is mentioned in this bill? Like, for example, I think snowmobiles, things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mr. Kolash.
Oh, Madam Chair, I'll take this one. Senator McEwen and Madam Chair, the reason the agency focused on passenger cars and light duty vehicles was because of their significant impact on greenhouse gas emissions in the transportation sector. As my colleague Frank Kolash mentioned, they make up 58% of greenhouse gas emissions, so the bulk of greenhouse gas emissions in that sector. And I would just note that at this time, we have no intention of regulating landscape equipment or some of those snowmobiles and things like that.
Senator McEwen,
Thank
follow
you.
up?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. My next question is, it goes actually to the issue of consumer use of different types of vehicles. And I don't, if you can't speak to it, perhaps others could, but I think maybe you have this expertise as well. Do you know how much could a consumer save over the life of owning a vehicle by purchasing an electric model? Especially with the current rise in the cost of fuel that we're seeing right now.
Madam Chair and Senator McEwen, our analysis for the Clean Cars Bill did show that there's an upfront cost increase in an electric vehicle and a battery photo hybrid vehicle as well. However, over the life of the vehicles, which is about a 10-year period, you can save up to $11,000 to $12,000 over the life of the vehicle. So significant savings. And this, of course, would only increase as gas prices do rise.
Thank you.
And Senator McEwen, there are other folks, so if you could.
I understand,
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Thank you very
Senator
much. I'm
McEwen.
almost done. I'm a little bit concerned about the wording of this bill. And I'm wondering what the potential ramifications are for the wording. I'm concerned that it would mean that no state agency would be permitted to adopt rules pertaining to the vehicles and the equipment that are named in this bill. Are there potential ramifications for that, for the wording?
Madam Chair and Senator McEwen, as we read this bill, it would prevent the MPCA from taking any actions related to the vehicles listed in this bill and the equipment listed in this bill, which would be problematic to address greenhouse gas emissions from those passenger duty cars.
Thank you. And I'll finish up, Madam Chair. Thank you. This feels very extreme to me. We've seen just this last year, oil companies worldwide have made $174 billion in profits. That's not income, that's not revenue, that's profits. $174 billion of profits. So when we're seeing those prices raised and we're seeing regular Minnesotans being hurt in their pocketbooks, we know who to look at for that. There's some profit mongering happening here that is hurting regular people, and it's not okay. You know, I'm really concerned that we're rehashing this when we all know where we need to go. And Minnesotans agree that we need these choices. We need choices for Minnesotans about being able to go to a car dealership and being able to have the choice and the option to try out an electric vehicle and to make a decision for your family about the cost. If you're willing to pay a little bit more upfront, you're going to have big savings going forward. And maybe not everybody is able to do that now. But as time goes by, the market is increasingly friendly toward these electric vehicles. And we know that this is where we need to go. So this is sort of confusing to me that we're hearing this right now. Madam Chair, I would like to ask for a roll call on this vote or on this bill, if I may.
Senator McEwen. Members, are there other questions? Senator Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I would like to correct one statement, Senator McEwen, that you made. Number one, the legislature did not authorize the agency to proceed with these rules. That's one of the reasons we have Senate File 3065 in front of us today. Madam Chair, I just have some number of questions here for the agency. Can you give us a status of the California car rules under Minnesota's rulemaking and when it will become effective?
Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chair, so the Clean Cars Minnesota rule was adopted in 2021, July of 2021. And we published the effective date in December of 2021 for an effective date of model year 2025, which is calendar year 2024. So that is the effective date for when there will be a compliance obligation on vehicle manufacturers. We are currently in a Clean Air Act mandated waiting period, a 2-year waiting period, where manufacturers are able to be awarded early action credits, which is one of the flexibilities that we incorporated into this rule to ease that compliance obligation. So manufacturers right now are earning credits, and we're in the process of beginning to track some of those credits, assuming that they would like to get them.
Senator Weber?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And can you tell me, how does Minnesota, the California car rules adopted by Minnesota, interact with the new federal fuel emission standards that are being promoted?
Mr.
Madam
McDonald?
Chair and Senator Weber, there are a couple of different standards being promoted at the federal level. One is the corporate average fuel economy standards, which is by NHTSA. Currently, NHTSA has preempted a Trump administration rule, pulled it back and rescinded it, that lowered the corporate average fuel economy, and they're in the process of now raising that. The Clean Car Standards does not address the corporate average fuel economy. That is something that is the purview of the federal government. However, EPA is also in the process of promulgating new standards for light duty vehicles and passenger cars for greenhouse gas emission standards. That rule, this new rule, which was promulgated in December of 2021, will harmonize with the Clean Car Standards. We will both have the federal rule and the Clean Car Standards at the same level in model year 2025.
Senator Weber, follow up?
Yes, so based on that, previously on your website, you had the argument that, well, we needed to do this because of changes in the federal rules, but now you've taken that off your website at this point. If that's the case, why do we need California car rules implemented here in Minnesota?
Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, the Clean Car Standards are still an opportunity to continue to push manufacturers to provide the cleanest possible cars so we can avoid the worst impacts of air pollution, be it greenhouse gas emissions or the other harmful pollutants that my colleague mentioned. So there's that opportunity. The Clean Car Standards also protect us from federal rollbacks, as happened during the previous administration, which help us meet both our climate goals and making sure that our air quality remains in attainment.
Senator Weber?
It's my understanding that Minnesota has adopted the California car rules as amended. So, and California is now in the process of updating its rules. And so if that is the case, their goal is to basically get rid of all gas-powered vehicles by 2035. So does that mean the agency has adopted that as your policy as well?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, we have not. California is in the process of updating their rules. However, when they do that, they will adopt a whole new rule chapter, and that will force a decision for Minnesota whether or not to revert to the federal rules, which will happen if we don't take action, or to adopt California's rules. The fact that the standard is written and our rule is written as amended allows us to incorporate potential small tweaks into the standard. However, if California were to drastically change their standard and change a definition, we would of course review whatever is happening as amended, but that's not what California is doing at the moment. They will adopt a full new chapter of standards that we will have to make an affirmative decision on whether or not to pursue or to revert to this federal standard.
Madam Chair. And who will make that decision, Mr. McDonald?
Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, we will continue to work as an agency and an administration to think about the ways that we utilize any type of rulemaking authority that we have.
Madam Chair, I think translated that means they intend to keep the legislature out of the decision-making process. If I'd like to go on, Madam Chair, through the adoption of the California rules, we basically declared ourselves a Section 177 state and under federal regulations. And so if we don't adopt those California changes that they make, what happens to our rules at that point?
Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, we would continue to follow the federal standards at that point if we decide not to adopt those standards.
Madam Chair.
Senator Weber?
So if you're saying there's a chance that the state will not adopt those new rules, basically we'd only be following them for a year, and we'd be into 2026, we'd be back to following the federal rules, correct?
Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, that would be correct. If we do not adopt a revised rule standard, we revert to the federal standards, which would take place in model year 2026 potentially. We would want to see any type of final rule that California has before making any decisions, because as we've said, we'd want to do what's in Minnesota's best interests.
Madam Chair.
Senator Weber?
Basically, California has a separate rule, as I understand, to regulate emissions from heavy duty trucks, and will require eventually for them to be electric. Could you use the authority you cited in section 116.07 to adopt California's heavy duty truck emission standards?
Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, the authorities laid out in 116.07 would allow us to set standards for mobile sources, including heavy duty trucks. But as I said earlier, at this point, we don't have any intention of doing so. We are continuing to focus on those passenger cars and light duty trucks, which are the greatest sources of greenhouse gas emissions.
Senator Weber?
However, Madam Chair, it's my understanding what you're saying is, yes, you do have the authority and to do that basically at any time you desire.
Mr. McDonald?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, the legislature has entrusted us with that authority.
You know, it just seems to me that there are also a number of other issues that bring forth. In a number of our communities that have municipal electric systems, for example, I've been told that more than 1 or 2 cars plugged in the block would actually cause problems within the grid system, for whether it's on a small scale or on a large scale. It has been claimed that the electric grid could not handle the kind of electric use you're hoping to achieve. Have you actually analyzed what this will do to the grid system?
Madam
Mr.
Chair
McDonald.
and Senator Weber, I may turn it over to my colleague Frank Kolash to speak to
Mr.
the
Kolash.
grid stability.
Madam Chair, Senator Weber, we have not conducted a specific type of analysis like you just described, but we have been working and in discussions with Xcel Energy through the Public Utilities Commission and with Minnesota Power again through the Public Utilities Commission of identifying what the source of electricity is. We have not heard that the grid itself would not be able to support this. In fact, there is opportunities that these kinds of electric vehicles could be grid strengthening because of with time of charge opportunities with that. But we have not conducted that exact study that you have asked, but we have also not heard from any electric generating or electric power provider that these would cause potential failures to their grid.
Madam Chair.
Senator Weber?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to share some information with you and the committee. I have some friends that live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is only 30 miles from my hometown of Laverne. They recently went on a trip to Naples, Florida, and while they were there, they ran into a couple from Sioux Falls who are friends of theirs. Their friends just bought a brand new electric vehicle. They decided to take it to Naples, Florida. 24 charging stops later, they arrived in Naples, Florida. 5 days instead of 3. Their first charge, they left during the bitter cold weather we experienced some weeks ago. They left Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Their first charge took them to Sioux City, Iowa. Do you know how many miles that is, gentlemen?
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, I do not know how many miles that is.
According to Google Maps, it's 87 miles. Now, you say you're not forcing people to buy these, but yet you are forcing a certain percentage of these vehicles to be on the lots, which will force our car dealers to have to try and sell them my round trip to St. Paul is 478 miles every week during session. I asked the members of the committee, do you think I'm going to trust an electric vehicle on the road to come up here? Do you think I should, Mr. McDonald?
Mr. McDonald.
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, I think your choice of vehicle is entirely up to you, and clean cars would allow people to make those choices. It doesn't regulate an individual choice.
However, your rules will add to the cost of every vehicle, including a gas-powered engine that I will choose to buy. Isn't that correct?
Mr. McDonald.
Madam Chair and Senator Weber, now because EPA is harmonizing the greenhouse gas emission standards for the low emission vehicles that we talked about earlier, we don't expect to see a gasoline power increase. The standards are the same. Our analysis looked at the event that you had a federal standard that was less stringent than the clean car standard.
Madam Chair, I guess I will just finish up by saying this. A long time ago, I'm in my 10th year here, and it's a number of years ago that I actually stopped believing the analysis from the MPCA. You know, what I have encountered in my district is that it's always been claimed to me, whether in my office or in committee, that you always follow the science. However, what I have found is that when the science doesn't agree with the political goal you have, you tend just to ignore it. And so, Madam Chair, I would encourage us to vote to send Senate File 3065 on, because quite frankly, my constituents cannot afford your analysis, Mr. McDonald.
Senator Swedinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really don't have a question. I just have 3 comments I'd like to make. And we've heard a lot today about consumer choice. And because of regulations, we don't totally have consumer choice. I can't buy paint with lead in it. I can't buy children's toys that will fit in their mouth. I can't buy a car without a seat belt. So there is precedent for me not to have 100% consumer choice with respect to that, hearing that phrase quite often today in testimony. The second thing I want to say is today's paper, the irony of this does not escape me. Today's paper in the Metro section in the Star Tribune has an article that's titled "Deaths Down Amid Air Quality Gains." This is good news. Deaths down amid air quality gains. But if you if you go to page 5 of the paper or scroll down on my phone, it does say later on, poverty in I can't believe I said scroll down, sorry. Poverty and minority racial status elevated rates of air quality related hospitalizations and severe outcomes in greater Minnesota and more so in the Twin Cities. The rate of respiratory hospitalizations related to fine particles from cars has resulted in twice as high of zip codes in the Twin Cities having twice as high of rates of respiratory issues. And so I think we need to move towards alternative methods of transportation. But I just want to, and then the third comment I have is there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years when this issue comes up about separation of powers and that the executive branch has circumvented their rulemaking and at the price of the legislative branch. But there is a third branch in our government, and it's called the judicial branch. And a judge said the adoption of clean car rules is necessary, is a necessity and reasonable. So the third branch of our government has weighed in on this issue and said, again, it's necessary and it's reasonable. So I just wanted to share with the committee some alternative things to think about. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there other questions? Senator Herr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make comment and perhaps, lead on to a question. If it may not be a question, but maybe just a comment. I think it's just a matter of whether we believe in keeping our our state and our society for better and cleaner air, or whether we believe in reducing, our greenhouse gas emission. That's probably where we stand. And I don't think this bill meet that goal of reducing, unless I'm wrong. We set a goal to reduce our greenhouse gas emission to 30% by 2025. And I don't see any mention of that. So that's just my comment. It's a matter of where we believe whether we want to keep, maintain or hold up to our goal, keeping our environment clean for the next generation, or including also reducing pollution in our state. So yeah, I just want to make that point, Madam Chair. Thank you for giving me a time, and glad to hear testifier and member make their remark as well.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sen Jim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't own an electric car, but I've driven them and I like them. I like their performance. I like the fact that the maintenance schedules on them is pretty minor. Certainly air quality issues there are important, but it's a range issue, at least for me, and so probably not real soon am I going to be thinking that direction. But I just believe that frankly, the price of gas is going to do a lot more to move electric vehicles forward, at least in this state, in this country, than a clean cars rule will ever do. And by a vast majority, I think I rather speculate in the next month or so, there's going to be a real interest in clean cars in Minnesota, just based on the fact that people don't like whatever $5 gas or whatever it might be. That's going to be a driver. It is in other countries in the world and will be here. So that I just don't think we need it. I think the gasoline market will drive this more than anything. In addition to those other things I mentioned, they're fun to drive, and the maintenance schedules on them are pretty meager, and so on and so forth from the standpoint of just those long-term costs. But Madam Chair, and I mentioned this other years, I just never quite understood what the authority of the agency is. And I went back into 11607 just a moment ago, and what it says is the agency shall adopt standards of emissions of air contaminants from motor vehicles, taking into account the variability of the purity of air in different areas of the state. If the agency would have come to us with or trying don't even come to us, they can do it by rulemaking, that in 2030, all cars in Minnesota are going to be zero emissions. I think that language would have given you the authority to do that. But I don't see anything in 1.07 that says that that particular statute gives you the authority to tell car dealers in Minnesota that they have to buy inventory and they have to hold it until they sell it. And if they can't sell it, tough luck on them. That's what really bothers me about this initiative. So it's just a comment. I don't need a response. I've sort of vented at least my thoughts on this one, but I would just say once again, I think, clean cars are with us, are going to come. But I think they're going to come in large virtue by the fact that we've got gasoline prices now that are going to drive people to thinking that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. As we go towards our roll call vote, I would ask those that are on the Zoom to please make sure that when you vote, your microphones are on. And with that, I will give Senator Mathews closing comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for another good debate. Just a few final comments. Senator Sen Jim said what I was going to say at first, that you're absolutely right. You can read the statute. The text of the current statute is in the bill in 116.07, and nowhere in there does it say that they're allowed to make an electric vehicle mandate that requires dealers to have certain products on their lot. It says adopt standards of air quality to include maximum allowable standards of emission of air contaminants for motor vehicles. and recognize that no single standard of purity of air is applicable to all areas of the state. The agency did not do that. I argue that they're outside of what statute allows them to do today. I understand we have one administrative law judge so far, Senator Swedzinski. You raise a good point on that. Judges can be wrong. That's why sometimes their decisions are later overturned. Legislatures are sometimes wrong. That's why some laws they make are later undone or redone differently. And here it's pretty clear a judge is supposed to read the law and apply the facts to the law and rule as to whether what they had was in the authority to do so or not. And right now, and we even heard this from the federal administration recently, of just tell people to, if you're struggling with gas prices, just go out and buy an electric vehicle. And I think that's one of the most out of touch phrases we could give to our general public right now, because the price of those vehicles are not affordable for a lot of people, including myself. And we do pretty well in life and in raising my family right now, but those are not affordable. So thousands of dollars over 10 years is all fine and good, but it can't be accomplished if you can't afford the cost up front. The market's going to be the one that will drive that and make that affordable, not mandates and rulemaking. And in closing, Madam Chair, I believe one day, I think you will see these agencies will start making more mandates in other areas. I believe that one day we will see mandates for requiring the purchase of electric vehicles, which the agency so far says it's not their plan, not their intention to do it, but they've always hedged their comments with those words. At this point, at this time, we have no plans to do so. I do believe that they'll move into mandates on our commercial vehicles and impact that industry, on tractors and agricultural vehicles and impact our farmers. I think that's the way that they're going. That's the way California is going. And the Minnesota agencies have been very interested in what California has been doing for a while. So while they can't say, they won't say it today, they won't say it next week or next month or this year, I do think that is coming. Now, maybe they'll say, we don't want Senator Mathews to be right and we won't do it in the future just to prove them wrong. And if that's the case, I'm okay with that. But I do believe that's the way that this is going. That's why we've brought this bill forward. That's why I've added the section for the consumer choice of fuel section. I think it's even more important now than it was in the past with the way that we've seen these mandates go. And with that, members, I'd appreciate your support for this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mathews. Senator Weber, would you like to make the motion to move the bill to state government finance as amended? Thank you. Senator Weber moves that Senate File 3065 be recommended to pass as amended and be re-referred to the State Government Finance Committee. A roll call has been requested. A roll call is granted.
Senator Rude,
Yes.
Senator Weber,
Yes.
Senator Lang,
Yes.
Senator Sen John,
Yes.
Senator Her,
No.
Senator Swedzinski,
No.
Senator McEwen.
No.
There being 4 ayes and 3 nays, the motion prevails. And the bill is re-referred to State Government Finance Committee. Members, seeing no more business before this committee, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.